I have to say that since, once again picking up the Vanguard and going, let's give this ship a shot, I have been very, very pleased with the ship's performance, the way it works within Star Citizen. It's not a one shot solution to all your problems, but it is now a great ship. Now, initially, when the Vanguard came out, we all remember that, there were a lot of high hopes around this ship. We were still living in that era of Star Citizen when every time a ship came out, we would ask, does it have a does it have a jump drive? Can it get to the next star system? That was our big concern. And the idea that fighters were operating off of carriers, the idea of the long range fighter was something that was very appealing. There was always that fear that, the limiting range on many fighters was going to prove to be something of a heavy duty limitation on the players who operated them. Now, range limitations on fighters, of course, is no real surprise, though the addition of the changes to how quantum works and quantum fuel and Starfarers not being able to harvest that fuel anymore, that sort of thing, has certainly probably been a little bit heavy-handed. Your quantum drive can overheat, you can run out of fuel, and Starfarers can't refuel you anymore. It's actually a mineral now, or whatever. But this ship is kind of immune to a lot of those concerns. This is something that is built to get you around. It's still meant to be a fighter, though clearly not the most maneuverable and nimble of the fighters. But even though it's a little bit cumbersome in its handling, it's certainly not anywhere near as maneuverable or as quick as a Gladius. It's a very resilient ship. It's a tough ship. I'm kind of running a full stop shield, and what was the other one, the Chamali or something like that? I'm sorry, I forget the names of them, but the one that has the high regen rate, so I'm kind of half and half between the two things. Someone in the org tipped me off to that, and I just went, I got to try that on my Vanguard. And so far it's worked out pretty decently, and I've had a lot of fun. And it's one of those ships that, it's not the most maneuverable, not the most quick, but it's tough. It can take a beating, and if I can bring that turret into operation either through an NPC or another player, I think that makes it a bit more of a threat. And of course, its firepower is nothing to be, sneered at. It's nothing to be taken lightly, because, if it gets a hold of you, it's going to throat punch you, especially if you're in a fighter, and it's going to hurt. And I've really been enjoying it. It has been what the Cutlass is to me versus other ships. This is the same thing, but in a fighter. It doesn't have a bespoke cargo area, but it can carry small mission crates that you have to take around to different locations, different little components. It can store those things within it. And that's a pretty good idea. And that's something that reflects the reality of the game, which is you're going to need to be able to carry these little add-ons and doodads as you're going to different locations. We are going to be dealing with a universe where players just can't reach into their magic satchel and pull out all these items that they have. Even in your more fantasy style RPGs, there's a lot of that kind of silliness going on. The fact that my rogue can carry 3 different sets of armor in a pouch that is visibly not apparent on her has always been something that's a little bit, weird, but I like the convenience, so I don't complain that much about it. But in Star Citizen, we're going to be dealing with, sort of weight restrictions and cargo capacity restrictions on our characters, something much more like a survival style game, like an old style DayZ or a Scum or something like that. And so having a ship that has the gun racks, has the armor racks, has the spaces to store all the little technical pieces that you may need, and a place to put, even if it's not a discrete cargo space, a place to put mission items that you may need to bring along with you. This is a ship that kind of factors all these things in. It opens doors, whereas other fighters may close those doors. And that, to me, is one of the reasons why, even though I've been probably one of the biggest critics of the Vanguard over the years, the core idea was always something that I was very much into from the beginning. And this is a ship that reflects the realities of the game. And I think that this is going to be, in the future, an extremely popular ship within the community. Now, the Cutlass, I think, is always going to have the advantage of the, bespoke cargo space. It's always going to have that convenience. I think that is going to maintain the popularity of the Cutlass because it's a solid all-arounder. But I think that for pirate groups that become a little bit more sophisticated, the ability to buy a ship like the Vanguard Warden and then swap in different components, and all of a sudden it's a bomber. Swap in different components, it's an E-War ship. Swap in different components, and all of a sudden it's a troop transport. I think that the next step up from the Cutlass for a pirate is probably going to be the Vanguard, in terms of that kind of quasi-fighter multi-role ship. I think the Vanguard is really going to be that next step. Now, you might look to other ships and say, well, what about this? What about that? What about the Redeemer? Well, we're never going to see the Redeemer. So I think that this is really going to kind of fill that slot, and this is going to be something that you're going to see a lot more players kind of adopting over time, because it has so many strong features for people who need to be wide-ranging, who need to be far-reaching, who want a resilient ship, but a ship that's still decently maneuverable, that packs a real punch and can take some really serious hits. And that's this ship right here. So I think that, in all honesty, how CIG has kind of transformed this ship, and not just in terms of its interior, but also in terms of its its interchangeability. You remember the hoplite was always going to be its own separate thing, until now it isn't. Now you can turn a Warden into a hoplite. You can turn a hoplite into a Harbinger, and they're all interchangeable between each other. That change, along with the improved handling and just the overall convenience of all the features that this ship now has built into it, I think it really has kind of turned the ship around and made it the ship that it was supposed to be, the ship that we always hoped that it would become, and certainly not the ship that we initially got, which was not great. The news that we'll be able to change the nose guns, and yes, they're going to be options for the Vanguard only. These aren't going to be guns that you buy and you can put on any ship, but they're going to be specific guns that kind of follow that certain special setup that it has in the nose. Just things like that, opening up those doors and freeing those things up, I think has really improved the outlook on this ship, has made this ship something that is much more attractive than what we initially got in 2.0 and beyond. I think that this is something to be commended, because this is a situation where this is a ship that, when it first came into the game, was really bad. It was slow, it was sluggish. I mean, we used to kind of laugh at it. We were like, it's a free kill because you just circle strafe it to death and it can't keep up with you. But, they've made little changes along the way to the handling that made it more competitive, that made it better. And certainly there were a lot of the features of the ship that the game systems didn't account for yet. So it did kind of take on the appearance of something a lot weaker than it would be once all these systems were brought into place. But that, coupled with all the improvements that have gone into it, a lot of which has been driven by the community and their commentary on the state of the ship, I think has really kind of put this ship into a fantastic place. And I hope that CIG kind of says, you know what, this is good. Let's just not, mess with this. We got a good thing going on here. Let's not screw it up.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.